Hello and welcome to the April Fire Chiefs video message for April 2021. Joining me today in lieu of Pete Parringer is Jay Blake. Welcome, Jay.
Well, thank you, Chief. These are big shoes to fill.
Big shoes, and you have better jokes. We've already learned that one for sure.
Okay, all right.
So one of the things that has transpired since we were last here was a large grouping of significant passings and members of the service, active and retired, that had passed. In my history, it's the most large clumping of passings that I can recall. There was 5 in just 1 week. Well, let's talk about some of those folks.
Yeah, there were a lot of services in a short period of time. So, Scott Emmons from Rockville, he passed after the illness.
So, we had former members and active members, administrative personnel. As you said, Scott had a medical incident. Was in the road to recovery, and suddenly and very sadly, tragically, passed. About a week after that, we then had the notice of Alan Hines passing. Alan has been in the service, Montgomery County, Rockville, for over 45 years. The number was roughly hitting 47. We had a member, Tim Fuentes, who is a life member of Burtonsville, and dates back into the mid-90s and his involvement at Burtonsville. He passed. Doug Allen was a life member of the rescue squad, BCC rescue squad, I'm sorry, and he passed. Compound that, during that week, we learned of Judy Lynn's passing. Judy worked at headquarters for many years. She passed. Also, a retired member of the service, Corey Walls, passed. So in 1 week, we just had 5 people in 1 week. And then, roll that out just a tad. Just about a week ago, the memorial service occurred for Chief Steve Miller. Steve had over 3 decades of service to the District of Columbia Fire Department, many years of service alongside Chief Seavey with Cabin John and the River Rescue Team, and had a lot of years also in the SCBA shop as an SCBA tech for the county. So a lot of passing. It's really been hard on the folks.
Yeah, it has. People have been talking about it in the firehouse a lot, and people were able to attend some of those memorial services, but because of COVID, not a lot of people were able to pay their respect.
And as we are a family, and as family is there to help each other, this is absolutely that time where there's a lot of resources available. Definitely want everybody to know to reach out to employee assistance, behavioral health, shift mates, co-workers, duty crew members, and check on them, check on how they're doing, because every one of us processes these different losses differently, and realize that there's tools out there to help each other.
There is a very good mental health toolbox for Montgomery County Fire Rescue. Absolutely. Just people need to reach out, and they can get help here.
Absolutely. So to all of the loved ones, for those that have passed, my thoughts extend to you and your families on your losses. My appreciation to you and your loved one for their service to the community, to the organization, and we as an organization, and I personally, are always here to help those folks as they come, because the fire department family will still be with you and with your family for periods to come. So as you said, a lot of the honoring and services related to these great folks were impacted by COVID. We are in April, but COVID is still actively and readily here. What are you seeing?
I want to say that I'm seeing people wearing their masks still, but I'm not seeing people wearing their masks on a regular basis. And I just want people to know that just because they're vaccinated doesn't mean that we don't follow our PPE plan. And our PPE plan is to be wearing our masks both on incidents and in the firehouse.
Yeah, no doubt. People ask me when I go out and visit stations, when are we going to be able to get rid of these? And my first answer is never. And they look at me with a little bit of shock. And I say, practically, we are going to likely see surgical masks or N95 mask on all patient encounters for every patient to come. Like the mid-'80s were with gloves,
Yeah.
I can expect 2020 is going to leave the surgical mask as a base core glove and mask for every patient encounter in the years to come. People will join our service and be surprised. Wait a minute, you never used to wear a mask? It's just a change for sure. Prior to the call, prior to an EMS encounter, absolutely, these are still here. There's a lot of progress. The state is practically in phase 2, moving into phase 3. Anybody who wants an inoculation can pre-register. There's people with, out every day helping at the mass vac sites, and that's going very well.
It is a well-oiled machine up there. I've stopped in, and our people are doing great work.
Well, I mean, Captain Schaefer and the folks that he has with him are doing amazing work and helping people have that tool. And that vaccination is just that, a tool.
Yep. We
still have our station mitigation processes. We still have our PPE processes. And we are starting to see a little uptick. We talk about and look every day as to how many people are unavailable to work or to do their duty night based upon being exposed or being in a quarantine fashion. It was in the numbers less than one hand, starting to go back up above that. And when it starts to rise, that obviously impacts the shift, the duty crews, and it's very important. So social distance, hand washing, wearing face covers. Anytime you're in excess, or excuse me, in less than 6 feet from somebody else, doing those practices on duty and off duty, at your primary working place, at your volunteer station, all of the above. Very critical and important. We have to keep vigilant on our COVID activities. These may stay with us through the summer, as a normalized work environment risk management tool, but to be determined on those fronts. So definitely I want everybody to keep focused, keep being vigilant in their practices and safe activities.
Yeah, we want to be moving forward. We don't want to be slipping backwards.
Right, and we're talking about a fourth wave, and we're talking about those numbers, and the folks in EMS 700 are still in place, still seeing that, and we're watching that every day, every week as we look to see how that goes. Let's talk about talking. Today, this week is National Telecommunicators Week, and the great importance of our folks at ECC.
Yeah, those, there are first responders who are screening the calls and dispatching the appropriate resources. They're an asset that sometimes, we forget about because we don't see them in the firehouse, but that they're part of, the big picture. They really, really start the ball rolling and getting the correct resources to the correct call.
Absolutely. They're the first voice that the person who's panicking, the person who's in trouble or calling about a trouble hears. And they're that first connection to the 911, to the emergency chain. And they do play such a critical role in getting the right resources to the right location, getting the right intelligence info to assist, unit officers and incident commanders have that situational awareness by using a technical device or the MDC.
Yeah.
So my hat's off to all of those civilian, police, and fire folks at the ECC for your dedication. High stress job, absolutely.
It is a high stress job.
The phone rings and rings and rings. We on the other end are talking on the radio and asking and asking and asking, and they're connecting the dots there. So they do a great job. Thank you to everybody that's there, and my hat's off, tip of the helmet, tip of the hat to you all for doing such a great job. We also have a lot of training. It's April. We finished up pretty much annual research, but we're now rolling heavily into the COT safety training. Talk to me about that.
So COT safety is going on throughout the county, different battalions, career and volunteer, it is of the utmost importance that we are using all the straps on the cot to secure our patient, that we're all proficient, no matter what our rank is on the incident, that we're all proficient in using the different makes and models of cots that we have in the fleet.
Absolutely. So, the shoulder straps, all the straps, the shoulder straps are changing from the 2-point connecting to the chest strap to the crossover.
Yes.
We need to know how that cot is configured so that we use it. And we do see a frequency of cot incidences where the shoulder straps were not utilized. So it's very important that, and that's why EMS went out and looked at and made sure all the cots, had all the right straps.
And that worked. That worked. We found deficiencies, either missing straps or cots that wouldn't operate properly, and we could address them immediately.
Absolutely.
And put that unit back in service with the correct equipment for the patient interaction.
Captain Coletti, Lieutenant Elliott,
those guys,
great work doing that, a survey with everybody else that assisted them, got all those defects fixed.
Yep.
Everything's got the right straps. Now, those folks that are out there talking about and have been trained by Stryker or the cot manufacturers and highlight when you think about it or you just talk about it, your light bulb goes off and says that makes perfect sense. We get into a bad routine, raise the cot all the way up, and let's go. Well, naturally, that's the most dangerous position of cot movement. That's the highest point, center of gravity is way up there, and that funnel is pretty narrow. Lower it down to a more reasonable level when you're traversing area.
Use everybody on the call, right?
Hands
There's
are
4
helpful.
people. Yeah, the more hands, the better. Moving over grass, sidewalk, uneven terrain.
Right. When you're using the cot totally elevated and on a downward slope, and you're going parallel across the slope versus longitudinally to the slope.
Yeah,
There's a lot of mistakes that we can avoid with just a simple correction that will reduce that risk. So it's a great help. There's a lot of good people out there, a lot of interest when those folks are out there doing that training. So definitely focus on that, and I appreciate everybody's attention to the cot safety activities. So April's here. People are starting to talk about summertime. We're starting to move into the warmer weather. We're also starting to see another uptick in fires. Yeah. We ran through the first quarter of the year, and we see about a 20% increase in fire activity or the number of significant fires. And everybody needs to obviously make sure when that bell rings, it's going to be an incident that you're prepared for, an incident that you have all the right tools and resources for, and turn that corner and be ready to go. Yeah. So get out there and drill. What are you guys doing out there?
Yeah, so you can tell that people are out there training and in their first due. We just had a fire in one's area the other morning at shift change. That captain gave a great push of information, communications over the radio, that there was a non-sprinklered, non-standpiped building. That sets everyone up for success. They know that they're not dealing with a standpipe system. They know that fire might not be in check because of sprinklers, and that there are issues with that. And that company, not just that shift, but that company has been in that building, has trained, has moved lines up and down the stairs. So it's those type of pre-planning for real life events. So when they come around the corner and fire's blowing out of the 5th floor window, there's no, hey, what are we doing in this situation? They've been in that situation in regards to doing a dry run.
Absolutely.
So you got to get out to those high hazard areas and practice what we're going to do for certain type of calls.
Absolutely. I mean, those hand lines were 500 feet long.
Yeah.
They were built up lines, bundle packs on top of pre-connects. You're talking about a garden apartment. Know how much of a leader line, know how long of a line you need to get to that point. As you said, 5 stories, unsprinklered, no interior standpipe. Benefit for us that day, it's on the top level. You didn't have, vertical extension to
Right.
deal with as much. But clearly, that's another issue at hand. So, using the weather as your benefit,
Yeah, get out there.
talk with those property managers, get out there, look through those buildings, do that practice, do that discussion. We had another great episode here recently of the 1-year anniversary of Boss Talks
Right.
and the review of Boss Talks. So
We've had more than enough topics for boss talks and challenges in the streets. We've been busy.
Absolutely. And I want to say thank you to Captain Miller, Chief Davis, and then Chief Kerrigan and Chief Bailey for that session here recently, where they did a recap of the points and the learns and how we've modified that Boss Talk program throughout the process, and how there's some more steps on the horizon to make it more engaging, as well as to bring others into the loop.
And I think you mentioned it. It's all about talking. They brought that up. Talking about these events at the firehouse, at lineup, while out on drills. That is a way of passing on information. That is good training to bring these topics up.
Right. Every time you run that call, you run the call once in real time, real life. You run that call many times over again in the head.
Yeah.
And repeating, rethinking how you would do that, how I did that. And that's a learning point. And how Jay ran a call, and then how I talked to Jay and learned how that occurred and what we do. Because when you go back to that call 2 years, 2 weeks, or 2 months later, in a very similar environment, you're like, okay, now I know what I'm going to do here, because a little nugget of lesson from that prior event. So kudos to Captain Miller, Chief Davis, for the Boss Talk program and the support of the Academy staff as we've transitioned to a great learning platform in the COVID times, with everybody being able to be involved.
All right, so you mentioned training. We have a recruit class in.
Absolutely.
Those recruits are out. Some of them are in their EMS modules. People are meeting them. They're riding on EMS units, getting their EMS time. Seems to be a good group of people.
Yep, July 30th is when they graduate. It's the planned graduation date, the end of July. We have open applications right now.
Oh, right,
It's going to be for another week or so as we're taping this episode, but that application period will lead to an entrance exam. We are aiming for probably, give or take, 80 or a little bit more folks to be hired in the rest of this year. So there'll be a class that hopefully starts in late August, early September, made of previously trained folks, and then a complementary class that starts very late December, very early January, of a full 26-week cycle. So hopefully you've already seen that application, passed it on to friends, been a great recruiter for the organization, and absolutely we're adding some folks to the organization and look forward to a lot of stuff going on at the Academy in the upcoming recruit classes.
Is that filling spots through attrition, or do we have any new positions?
So it's in the budget cycle. The executive has recommended 10 additional positions for the ALS training process to give us billets or FTE positions for ALS training. So we're also looking at a new chase car and a new daytime EMS unit in the budget proposal. It's still April, so it's still a little early on that. But yeah, so those positions predominantly are attrition support and a little bit towards that 10 positions for ALS training. So a lot of activity going on. So I want to again say thank you, Jay, for filling Pete's seat, not his shoes, his seat, and again having a better approach. So thank you very much.
Well, thanks, Chief.
And to everybody else, as we talked about, get out there, look at the buildings, look at your target hazards, talk about how to be prepared for that call, be it 3 o'clock in the morning or 3 o'clock in the afternoon, be it in the middle of the night or with a lot of occupant load, or the middle of the day. Everybody's at home, or a lot of people are at home, so occupant load is much different in the pandemic. So till next time, get out there, practice, train, be safe.